This is number 1 from the practice quiz for solving trig equations. We have sine y times tan y equals sine y. Now, I put this one on the practice quiz specifically so I could talk with you about not dividing both sides by a variable. At this point, it is really tempting to divide both sides by sine, and then you just have tangent equals 1. Well, that is one of the solutions, but if you do that, you lose the other. So what we want to do instead is set our equation equal to 0 and factor. So we're going to subtract sine y over, and on the left side, these aren't like terms. So we're set equal to 0, and now we can factor. Our terms have sine in common, so I'm going to write a sign on the outside. And remember, when you factor out a term, you have the same number of terms left. You have the same number of things left in your parentheses as you did before. So I know that seems like a really simple idea, but a lot of students kind of lose that when they start talking about trig. They kind of freak out. So here, our first term, we have tangent left. And since we factored out the sine, what we have left there is 1. Sine times 1 is sine. And now we can set these both equal to 0 and solve. So we have sine of y equals 0. And we have tan of y minus 1 equals 0. So that means that tangent of y equals positive 1. And now we want to think back to our unit circle. Here it tells us to give the general equation. So sine of y is 0 at at pi and at, so sine of y is 0 at 0 and pi and 2 pi. So if we're going to write a general equation, I like to start by saying where it happens, just between 0 and 2 pi. So it'd be 0 and pi. And those are pi apart, so our general equation for that would be 0 plus pi k. That gets all of the revolutions. That hits 0 and pi and 2 pi and every other place that would happen. Tangent of y is 1. That means y is pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4, because tangent is positive in the first quadrant and the third quadrant. And if you think about how that picture would work, those are pi apart since they're on the same angle line there. So we would do the same thing here. Y equals pi over 4 plus pi k, and that gets us every solution. So if you're struggling with when to use plus 2 pi k and when to use plus pi k, tangent is when we use plus pi k most often. The other thing you can do is just draw yourself a diagram and see where if your angles would be straight across the unit circle from each other. That's number 1 on the practice quiz.